Naked Gun was the smash hit crime drama spoof released in 1988, but it started its life as a TV show, Police Squad.
There had been a recent wave of gorgeous fashion models found naked and unconscious in laundromats in the West Side. Unfortunately, I was assigned to investigate holdups at neighborhood credit unions.
This show, like the movie which would follow, was created by the same people who made the hit comedy Airplane, Jim Abrahams and the brothers David and Jerry Zucker, and it features their signature deadpan jokes.
Do you think you can beat the champ?
I can take him blindfolded.
What if he's not blindfolded?
I can still beat him.
The major difference between Police Squad and Naked Gun, apart from the half-hour format, is that Police Squad was not a success.
We did 6 shows. Thermopolis, who was the head of ABC at that time, he said, well, the series didn't work because you had to watch it. Well, it sounds funny and sounds dumb, but it was true. You had to pay attention. You couldn't look away. You had to watch that to make sure that you caught the humor or where it was coming from. And television, people don't really watch TV. They're around. That's why you can have a laugh track. You know, you can read a book and say, oh, what are they laughing at? What is it? Oh, yeah, that's funny.
It was suggested at the time to Jim Abrahams and the brothers Zucker that they should turn the project into a movie, which they declined, fearing the subject would not stretch to an hour and a half. But 6 years later, they came up with a story and set about making it into a feature film. Though this is the first film which was not helmed by the 3 men together.
When we first got together, it was kind of on all art because David and Jerry had access to some video equipment. And so we got together and just started filming spoofs of commercials and popular TV movies from that era, from the late 60s and early 70s, and just to have fun. But eventually we started to show them to friends and family, and they laugh. And so we thought, oh, this is cool. Maybe we can open a theater in Madison, Wisconsin, and show it to them. So we really had years and years of filming and showing the stuff in front of an audience before we got to our own set.
Before the release of Naked Gun, the 3-headed director helmed the movie Ruthless People, which, as a quick aside, I would just like to say is really, really good. But it's the only movie they directed together on which they do not also have screenwriting credit. As a result, there were differing opinions on how the material should be performed. After the release of that movie, Jim Abrahams would also direct Big Business by himself, which he also did not write, and David Zucker would direct Naked Gun, on which the 3 men shared writing credit with Pat Proft.
To some extent, whether something is tasteful or tasteless, it depends to some degree on how big a laugh it gets. You know, no, I mean, but that's true. All laughter settles all arguments.
These writers have 15 rules for writing comedy, which can be found online, but Naked Gun largely adheres to them, so I'm going to recount them here. Number 1, joke on joke. 2 jokes at the same time cancel each other out. When an actor delivers a punchline, it should be done seriously. It dilutes the comedy to try be funny on top of it. Number 2, acknowledgement. Actors in the foreground must ignore the jokes happening behind them. Number 3, unrelated background. A joke happening in the background has to be related to the action in the foreground. 4, breaking the frame. Don't remind the audience they're watching a movie. This is a rule that fellow spoof maker Mel Brooks has very little regard for. Number 5, trivia. Don't use references so arcane that few people will ever get it. Number 6, Jerry Lewis. Don't use a comedian in a straight role. Scenes in parody ought to mimic the real thing, which is why they use so many dramatic actors. Number 7, axe grinding. When a joke is overshadowed by some message, it gets unfunny fast. This is a bugbear of mine. Please heed this, any writers of Saturday Night Live watching. 8, self-conscious. Any jokes about the movie itself prevents the audience from being invested in the plot. Number 9, straw dummy, where the intended target of the joke is set up by the writer instead of real life. Even if the joke hits its target, I mean, who cares? 10, can you live with it? Once a joke is made, it can't be allowed to hang around after the initial laughs. So I guess that means that if you did the boot polish on the binoculars joke, after the laughs have passed, they have to wipe their faces. They can't have black eyes for the rest of the film. Number 11, that didn't happen. Anything that defies all logic has to be on and off the screen really fast so you can get away with it. Number 12. Late hit. You know a particular target has had enough when it's been raked over the coals by Leno, Letterman and MTV. Obviously these references are out of date, but you get what I mean. You don't want to be the fourth person to make a joke. Number 13. Technical pizzazz. Special effects don't necessarily mean laughs. Number 14. Hanging on. Don't play a joke too long. When it's reached its peak, cut. And number 15. There are no rules. Obviously this means that any of these can be broken if and only when it's funny to do so.
Mr. Palazzo?
Yes?
I'm the head usher.
It is difficult when making a video about a comedy not to let it become a clips reel of the movie's funniest moments. I can't do that because of YouTube's copyright system and because the only highlight reel which would contain every funny joke would be watching the movie in full beginning to end. But I would feel remiss if I did not mention my favourite scene, where Frank Drebin has to take the place of an opera singer who is set to sing the Star-Spangled Banner at a ball game. And of course, Drebin can neither sing nor does he know the words.
Whose bright stripes and broad stars in the perilous night.
I would not be surprised if this was the inspiration for Roseanne Barr to sing the national anthem at a Padres game 2 years later. But given the choice between watching the two, I'd watch the former. Naked Gun, as I said before, was a huge hit, and the relative failure of the original series from where many of the jokes derived was in the movie's interest, as they were fresh to the audience. And 3 years later, a sequel came.
What's that smell?
Oh, that would be me. I've been swimming in raw sewage. I love it.
That's the signal. Let's go. Do it.
Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear, was again directed by David Zucker, but two names were absent from the writing credits, that of Jerry Zucker and Jim Abrahams. Instead it was credited to David Zucker and Pat Proft, as Abrahams was off directing Hot Shots and Jerry Zucker had just directed the hit film Ghost.
Naked Gun 2.5 was created by the team of David and Jerry Zucker and partner Jim Abrahams. And when you watch one of their movies, like Airplane or Top Secret, you have to watch closely to catch all the jokes. And far too few films these days are well written enough to demand attention. I really like this picture.
I did too. I agree with you. It's not as good as Airplane. It's not as good as Top Secret.
Right.
But it's not bad either. And it is so shamelessly stupid that at times I found myself laughing twice. First at the joke, and then secondly at myself.
Right.
You know, the guy says, do you believe in taking chances? He says, every time I order out. I laughed at that, and then I thought, that's really dumb. And the whole movie is at that same, it's so dumb, it's funny.
Naked Gun 2.5 is funny, but not quite as good as the first film. But I owned this film on VHS back in the day, and none of the others. So as a result, I have watched it to death, and I say it stands the test of time.
But I've seen so many copycat Naked Gun Airplane movies lately in the last 3 or 4 years that have been really pretty awful. And it really is amazing that you guys seem to be the only ones who have the formula now. Even parts of this team go off and do things, and they almost hit home runs, and they do okay, but not quite ever what the Airplane and the Naked Gun series can do. I mean, do you know when you're out there, you're hitting a home run?
Well, I felt we were hitting a home run, not knowing as well then as I do now, because when the talents involved in putting the films together are really superior. They're tremendous. David's flair for comedy and his knowledge of comedy is just one in a million. He's one of the best directors. Then to have the luck of finding Pete Segal and to work with him as a young director who did a monumental job actually directing by committee, because he had a lot of people who were telling him what to do.
Around the time of the release of the first Naked Gun sequel, Leslie Nielsen's persona switched, at least in the public consciousness. He went from being that dramatic actor from films like Forbidden Planet to that funny guy from the spoof movies, which I'm sure the studio was fine with as long as it kept making them money. Another sequel was requested, this time called Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult. And again, it was written by David Zucker and Pat Proft, but also someone called Robert Locash, who would later share credit with Zucker on the movie Basketball. Again, another funny film, but that's for a different video. But this was the first Naked Gun film not to be directed by Zucker himself. Instead, that role went to the first-time director Peter Segal.
And I had no experience, and I was, took a lot of grief from Leslie Nielsen, who did not respect me, and
really,
not at all.
So that was very difficult from day one.
Horrible.
Made your life hell.
Absolutely, one of the worst days of my life was day one of Principal.
What happened?
I showed up, and I was stunned at how slow he was reading the scene. And I thought, I went back to the monitor and I said to David Zucker, I said, oh my God, he's not the guy on screen. You created him. That's not who he is. How dare you? I didn't say that, but I was. Why
didn't you tell me?
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Why didn't you tell me? And so I would go back to him, and it was just like, starting a lawnmower. It took several pulls of the cord, and I would whisper, "Hey, maybe can we just pick up the pace just a little bit?" And he just lashed out at me and said out loud to the crew, "Whoa, the kid wants me to go faster." Faster, he says. And it was humiliating, and everyone just looked down like, oh boy. And I thought I had to pull him aside. And I said, hey, Leslie, I'm 30. And I said, we've got 72 more days. We've got to get along. I'm just trying to help here. Maybe cut me a little slack. And he sort of did. And then 2 weeks later, we were shooting a prison riot scene. He pulled me aside and said, well, Sherry Lansing called me and said she's loving the cut footage, and or the dailies, and you're doing a Herculean job.
The reviews for the final film were actually a bit mixed, most saying it was okay but the third best. But the film critic Roger Ebert had this to say:
I like this movie, I think it was funny, I give it 3 stars, and I'm Roger Ebert.
This was designed to be the last Naked Gun film.
Now, isn't it amazing how your life has turned since really the airplane things? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, do you find that you're that people really want you to be Frank Drebin when you go into a room or an interview or in an airplane lounge or whatever?
It really makes no difference with what they want, because I know now that I am Frank Drebin. And it's nice to be able to just say, hey, no, I'm just as dumb and stupid as Drebin is. And yeah, we go to bed together. We are one and the same person.
In 2009, there was rumour that there was to be another Naked Gun movie, this time designed to go straight to TV. The plot was apparently about Frank training a rookie. The script was written by Alan Spencer and thought to be rather funny, but the original creators didn't want it to go ahead, and later financial reasons mean it did not. But it turns out that David Zucker had his own plans for a Naked Gun sequel.
So we thought, but we didn't want to do the old cop, the Leslie 60-year-old in a cop station in L.A. I've done that. I didn't want to do the third one even.
Right.
So what we did is, but the sense of humor is the same. If we can do our spoof, our good jokes, why not have, it's the son of Leslie Nielsen, as you probably read in it. Yeah. He's a security guard somewhere, and then he gets mixed up in with the CIA, and he does a Mission Impossible mission.
Right. So it becomes more of a Mission Impossible spoof in a sense
Born Identity
than a
and Bond.
Yeah.
The script was written in 2018 and was designed to be more of a Mission Impossible spoof than a cop drama to keep up with the times.
And then I wake up to read that Naked Gun 4 is being done with Seth MacFarlane, has taken over the franchise.
I'm sure everyone who has got this far into this video already knows that there is a new Naked Gun out. Produced by Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane and starring Liam Neeson. As I record this, it has not been released in the UK, and I don't think it's fair to judge a film sight unseen. But my initial reaction to the trailer was, it'd be nice to see a comedy on the big screen for a change, but isn't it a shame it isn't something new? If you would like to watch the Naked Gun films, they're available from most streaming platforms. If you have enjoyed my commentary, then I have made several other videos for this channel. Maybe someone could put a playlist up at this point or something? Anyway, I have my own channel too. It's called I'm Making a Movie. I called it that because I'm making a movie. I'm Scott Kingsnorth, and I'm making a movie.